Welcome back, everyone, to Coffee Unlimited with J and D. I'm with my co-host Danielle, and we have a real serious conversation to have today. We thought it might be interesting to start a new series titled Leaders Behaving Badly. Dun dun dun. Because we were reminiscing about some of our own experiences in corporate workplaces and beyond. And we've seen and observed and experienced quite a few instances of leaders in positions of power behaving badly in the workplace. So, on today's topic, on our first episode of Leaders Behaving Badly, we are going straight to a serious conversation around harassment in the workplace, and very specifically, sexual harassment. And this, even saying that, calling it harassment, we debated that right before we started recording. We debated, do we use the word harassment? And I actually just threw in sexual harassment. We didn't even talk about that. But, it's because it's a really heavy topic and a serious topic, and it feels very uncomfortable to label something that. But I believe it's important to name things for what they are. And some of these examples that we're going to be discussing today are absolutely examples of sexual harassment. So we're going there. If you listen to our podcast, there's no topic off limits. So today we're going to talk about that. Danielle, do you want me to kick it off with a little story, or do you want to share one of your stories first?
I think I want to just take a beat right now and just acknowledge the discomfort in this conversation for me.
Yeah.
And, just us connecting right before we hit record and sharing a bit about our experiences. And we felt like we wanted to talk about them because if both of us had more than one experience, and we're going to share our examples, but we felt like there are so many others who have had similar experiences. I mean, we know that they have had similar and even worse experiences and have maybe not even shared, openly. And Janelle and I both talked about how we didn't want to share, we didn't want to talk about this because there's the discomfort and just wanting to put it behind us and not even have this conversation. So I just kind of wanted to put that there, like we, yeah, we're going there, and it's not easy, and it might be uncomfortable throughout this whole conversation. Like I'm uncomfortable right now.
Hmm. Yeah, I know I'm sweating through my hoodie right now. And we've only been, I think we got
The
on this
intro.
call. Exactly. We're in the intro. We haven't even really gotten into the meat of the conversation, and I am sweating. But if not us, then who is going to talk about this? So, thank you for pausing for a moment, Danielle. Yeah, I think I'm gonna share a story. So first of all, I'm gonna preface this by saying I work in HR. So I have seen a lot of things being an HR person. And for the sake of my profession, I'm not going to share examples of things that I'd heard about, but I will only share examples of my own experience. And I've had a few. So I'll share first this experience I had in my mid-20s, actually. So if you're listening, think back to your mid-20s and who you were at that time and what life experiences you'd had. For me, I hadn't had a lot of work experience yet. I had been a student in college. I went to grad school as well right after my undergrad. So really entered full-time workforce when I was maybe 22, 23. And so shortly after that, not right when I entered the workforce, but shortly after that, I had gotten a new job and I was a recruiter. And I was working for this organization. And as a recruiter, you work with many leaders who are hiring positions. And so I was meeting with a leader about a recruitment strategy. This was probably our second or third meeting together. and we're sitting in his office. The door is closed. I'm taking a moment to give an update on where I was at, what universities I was looking at for applications, what some of the things that I was going to be doing to better understand the roles. I was going to job shadow some people in the position so that I could, when I start phone screening candidates, I could be really informed on what was necessary for the positions. And so I'm kind of going through this strategy that I had prepared. I was really prepared for this meeting. I had notes on my lap and I'm sitting across from him and I look up for a moment and I see him just kind of smirking at me, actually. The way he was looking at me and smirking, it kind of caught me off guard. So I stopped for a moment and I just stared back at him. And he looks at me and he just kind of like smiles and he shakes his head at me and he says, God, I could just look at you all day. And in that moment, I was very speechless, actually. I didn't know what to say or how to respond to that because it came out of left field. Like it wasn't anything that I thought was going to come out of his mouth. If anything, I thought maybe he was going to ask me to clarify something. Actually, based on the look on his face, I really didn't know what he was going to say, but it wasn't that. Like that was not on my bingo card of things I thought this leader was going to say to me. And in the moment, I really didn't know how to respond. I froze. I just sat there. And I actually even quickly glanced at the door because my initial reaction, besides freezing, because that is my fear response, I freeze. But then after that, I thought, how do I get out of here? Like, how do I get out physically out of this office? But I couldn't move. I actually just kept sitting there. And so I think if I remember correctly, he didn't say anything beyond that. He just kept like smiling at me. And I think I just kept going with what I was saying. I think I said something to the effect of, so I'm going to post these roles, and then when I pick 20 or so resumes I think you'll like, I'll send them to you, that kind of thing. And then he was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, yeah, sounds good, great." And I remember leaving the office. I can still picture it so clearly, and this was over 20 years ago. I can picture the office. I can picture how I felt. I think my legs were shaking a bit. I just hadn't ever experienced something like that. And I know many people might hear this story and think, well, that comment is pretty harmless. And by itself, or just like if you just take the words at face value, yeah, it's pretty harmless. Someone saying, God, I could look at you all day. And if anything, it's a compliment, I guess, at the heart of
It
it.
sounds creepy to me.
Right, exactly.
It
Because
sounds
also
really
this
creepy.
person was over 20 years older than me too. So,
Exactly. In a
and
position of power, you're
yes.
there,
Hmm.
young,
Yes.
and yeah, I just can't like I'm picturing you as, that mid-20s young recruiter and what that must have felt like for you and how you
Yeah.
are now. Like I know you and I know you'd be like, you would not have bypassed that comment. You'd have
No, I
been
would
like,
not now. Yeah, Janelle,
full
now
up.
today's Janelle
Oh, yes.
would have ruined that guy's career. I would have, I
Exactly.
would have had
What did
a
you say?
very,
Say that one more time as I hit record.
excuse me? Yes. And then let me go back to my desk and post this on the internet.
Exactly.
But that you bring up such a good point, Danielle, because yes, today's Janelle would not have let that comment fly. I would not have frozen, at least not for as long as I did. It probably would have still taken me aback in a moment. And I would have quickly put that person in his place and
Hmm.
let him know how inappropriate it was and how I wasn't going to allow anyone to talk to me like that. But today's Janelle is very different than 25-year-old Janelle. And so I think, when you and I even thought about this conversation and talking about this, what I want to honor and acknowledge is that there are different versions of us as we grow in our lives and mature in our lives. And there are times when we don't have a voice or don't have the power or the experience or just the good old cojones to fight back and to stand up for ourselves
Yeah.
as women in the workplace. And that was something I learned over time to fight for my worth and to fight for respect in the workplace, for my point of view and my opinion and my place in the workplace. But at the time, so as you can imagine, I was a little bit gun shy after that. I had to continue to meet with this senior leader for many months because there were a lot of positions I had to fill for his department, his division that he led. And the comments continued, and they actually just got increasingly more direct and lewd, to the point where it really only stopped when I stopped I wasn't a recruiter anymore, actually. Thankfully,
Hmm.
after a year and a half, I got a different job. So I could
Wow.
remove myself from having to meet with that leader.
A year
Um,
and a half, you had to engage with this leader?
well, of the year and a half that I was a recruiter, I engaged with that leader probably 10 months
Oh
of the
my
year and a
gosh.
half. But I don't
Wow.
think any interaction went by without something, some comment about what I was wearing, how I looked, my smile, something. And it was always in the form of a compliment, but it was a way to exert power over me.
Hmm.
And I absolutely felt it. I felt small and I felt little in his presence, which which stayed with me for a while. I think there were many other situations in that same organization where, for no other reason than past experience with that leader, I felt small with other leaders, even though they didn't say anything inappropriate. They didn't even look at me differently or funny. I just equated them and their senior leadership role as being predatory and scary, actually.
I'm so sorry, Janelle. I'm
Mm.
sorry that you had to go through that. It's just like, yeah, my heart's broken. Like,
Mm.
for 25-year-old Janelle. And
Yeah.
how many young women, you know,
Other young
go through
women.
this?
Yeah, absolutely.
No.
Well, thank you, Danielle. And yeah, I think it did take a lot of my own self work, inner work, to build the version of Janelle that exists today. That's powerful and strong and I have a lot of empathy for those who have not found their voice yet or have not found their power yet. And I definitely try to advocate for them as much as possible. And I look out for them in the workplace. I look to see signs because I can recognize some behaviors that I did when I'm watching and observing others, particularly new people in a workplace, young people in a workplace, because you think about it, these people who are predatory, and I guarantee this leader did this to other people. I wasn't the only one. I was just the new one. I was just the new hire, and I was the new person on the block. But they have a whole script and they have a whole system of exerting this kind of intimidation with people. And I know this person wanted something with me, wanted more, and I was able to always deflect and avoid it. But his intentions were very clear.
Hmm.
And thankfully, I was able to always avoid that. But I'm sure many people are not able to. And so, like you said, we're sharing some of our examples and some of our stories today. We know that others have had even more traumatic and harder experiences. And some have had, maybe not as dramatic experiences, but they all affect us in their own way, unfortunately. And for some of us, it can take a long time to get over it and to get back to a stronger version of ourselves. Because I actually was a really strong person before that. I was a competitive athlete. I was very, fit. Well, I guess, I mean, not that fitness is all of it, but like I could
You
beat
could
someone
kick his
up.
ass.
I could kick someone's ass. In
That's right.
fact, like way back when I had this nickname in first grade, Nut Kicker Neva, because I kicked a boy in the nuts in first grade for saying something I didn't like. I just kicked him so hard. And then they started calling because my maiden name is Neva. So they
Yeah.
called me Nut Kicker Neva. So I used to be up and through college, I was very assertive and very bold and courageous. But
Well,
that,
you know what though,
yeah.
Janelle? I think you were at that time
Hmm.
as well, even just to stand there and listen to that bullshit from that senior leader
Mm.
and not be like, I'm quitting my job, right? You're
Oh,
like,
yeah. Hmm.
that took a lot of strength
Hmm.
to have, I mean, and 10 months to be in
Yeah.
that space. I mean, there's so many different ways in which we can express our strength. And so I just
Mm.
wanted to pause and say that you were strong then too.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. I hadn't really thought of it that way, but you're right. Yeah, you're right. I didn't quit. I didn't give up. I didn't tell anybody because at the time I remember there was a point where I wanted to tell my manager, and I know she would have had my back and protected me and probably would have gotten that guy fired. Like it would have really worked her up. And I was actually scared of that. I was scared that this was all going to get exposed, that he was going to get fired and everyone was going to know the reason why he got fired. And I didn't want that spotlight on me. I really
Yeah.
didn't. I wanted to be sort of invisible and just do my job, do it well, and you know get accolades for my work because my work is good, not because of, some experience I had and I exposed someone doing
Hmm.
something bad. I didn't want that to be part of my personal brand. So I didn't tell anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting. But Danielle, you had an experience that you mentioned right before this in your 40s, actually.
Hmm.
So I had this experience in my 20s, and maybe you had other experiences when you were younger, but you shared something because nothing like that's happened to me recently. Like, I think I probably have this air about me now that was like, don't mess with me, kind of bitch face, just resting bitch face, like, don't go there. But, and also, I'm in my 40s. I'm not getting hit on. So you, though, you had an experience in your 40s.
Well, it might have been in my late 30s.
Okay.
So I'll
All
put
right.
that out
Well,
there.
okay. Well, then I get it. Yeah.
Nobody's hitting
Okay.
on me right now. And nobody has hit on me in a long time. Let's just put that out there.
Okay.
Okay. And I mean, okay, so my thing was not, I know this isn't like comparing, but I just want to preface that it wasn't a 10-month kind
Mm.
of thing that I had to deal with. It was just
Hmm.
a one night. This guy was super drunk. It was after one of, a holiday party where the
A work
company
party,
was,
though,
yeah, a
right?
work
Yeah.
party where
Hmm.
the company was giving out vouchers so people could take a taxi home and, get back to their place safely. And I shared a taxi with this other coworker who I didn't know well. I mean, I knew him a little
Okay.
bit, but I think he might have been a little bit older than me, maybe just a few years, but he was a lot bigger than me physically. And
Mm.
he was so drunk. So anyway,
Hmm.
I'm in the back seat. Thankfully, it was a short ride back to my place. But he just kept putting his hands on me. He put his hands on my leg and I was pushing him. Then he'd start to put his hand down my shirt. I mean, just from like, it's not like we were making out or anything. I'm just
Just
in the back. He's
good
like,
old-fashioned groping.
it's totally like, and then, so I was physically using my hands, pushing him off, using my legs too. And I said, just stay on your side. Just stay on your side, buddy.
I don't mean to laugh, but I'm only laughing because I'm picturing you with your legs just pushing and your arms pushing this person away.
I
Oh
know,
my
because
gosh.
he
And
was
was
so huge.
he a senior leader? Like was he in a higher position of power than you too, or just
He
physically bigger?
he was in, I think maybe just he wasn't like an executive. So, but
Hmm.
he was in a higher position than me.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
we weren't in the same department.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel that. It wasn't like I was working with him. I was literally just sharing this cab with a drunk guy. And so it didn't even feel like a workplace. It just felt
Yeah.
like, yeah, you just are in a cab with a stranger and you
Hmm.
just need to protect yourself physically.
Yeah.
But
So this
yeah,
is going on for the ride. And do
yeah.
you get to your place first?
Yes. Yeah. I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God, I could not get out of that car fast enough. I mean, I even
Hmm.
debated just, I'll walk home. Just drop me off
Yeah.
here. Like, I need to get out of this car. But luckily, like every time I pushed him, I had a couple of minutes before he was like sliding over again. So,
Before his hands made their way back to your body. That
yeah.
is crazy,
I mean,
Danielle.
but
That's
he
crazy.
didn't touch anything.
Yeah.
Not like there's much to touch on this upper portion. Anyway, that's why I was like, this dude is so freaking drunk. He doesn't even know who he's trying to feel up right now. Feel your own man boobs. No, I know we're laughing about this, but I mean, and even at the time, I was just like, oh my God, dude, get your shit together, was what I was
Yeah.
thinking.
Oh,
I
I'm
wasn't
sure. I'm
feeling,
surprised you didn't say that. Knowing you, I'm surprised you
I
didn't
might
just
have said that.
flat out said that. Yeah.
I was just like, get over there. Um, but just like you, the next day, my manager was like, oh, how's the ride back home? Or something like, oh, did you sleep
Hmm.
well? Or, and I had mentioned to her, like, oh God, I was with this guy who's so off his face, just trying to feel me up. And she was like, what? Tell me now. And all of a
Hmm.
sudden, it turned into this like, oh my gosh, I have a choice to tell my manager who this person was and what he did, and potentially get him fired and ruin his career. And I
Hmm.
chose not to. And she kept pushing me, like to
Hmm.
say, I want you to tell me. I'm like, no, I feel like, because unlike, well, I don't see this is where it's like, I'm making excuses for this predator, right? Like maybe this is his MO. Every time he gets drunk, he tries to feel up anybody, a warm body that's beside him. I don't know. And I
Hmm.
wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so I felt like, yeah, I didn't. So I never shared who that was. And, I saw him at work and he didn't even recognize me.
Well, you think not. Like, here's the thing, though. It's a good question. We don't know if this is a regular occurrence for him or if that
Right.
was truly a one-time thing that's never happened. But I also think people who are predatory are really good at hiding it and acting as if
Mm,
nothing happened. So you
mm,
could see how multiple scenarios could be true or multiple realities could be true. It could have been that he was so drunk and he didn't even remember that he did that or who he did it to. Um, or he does remember and he just played it off like it was no big deal. Like,
yeah.
yeah, I did that. So what? I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know. But so
Hmm.
I am actually really curious. Like, how did you feel when you would see him later? Was it anything or were you kind of just like, you know what, actually, that's behind me now. And he was so drunk and giving him the
That's,
benefit of the doubt.
it's interesting that you asked that question because it's taking me back to the many times I saw him after that.
Hmm.
And I always went back to that, taxi ride. Like for
Hmm.
me,
Yeah.
I was just like,
You,
oh, drunk taxi guy.
yeah.
So obviously it did affect me in
Yeah.
some way. And
Imprinted.
yeah, I
That's the
avoided
thing.
him too.
You know what? That's the thing that I think some of these traumas do to us is it creates this embedded image of it. Even replaying this story today, I can picture that office perfectly. I can
Hmm.
picture the whole building that office sat in and the cubicles around it and everything. It's as if, and if anyone were to mention that person's name, that's what I would picture. I wouldn't picture anything else but like the moment and the place that I was. And it's
Yeah.
interesting how our minds do that. They create almost like a still image or a short video, short movie
Hmm.
that we can get triggered by it and we're taken back to it. You know, I can be taken back 20 plus years to an
Yeah.
office. I can't remember my own manager's office, you know, and I adored her, but I don't remember
Hmm.
what her office looked like, but I remember what this guy's office looked like. And so it's
Yeah.
interesting how those things stick with us and can affect us because it got to a point where even if someone had the same first name as this individual, I would get a little bit triggered. And it's really
I mean,
interesting.
that's trauma. Like for me, I can't even remember this guy's name because it
Hmm.
was a one-off. And I also think
Yeah.
because I was older,
Hmm.
things had happened to me. I'd lived through worse, right?
Yeah.
And so,
Yes.
by that point in my life, in my late 30s, early 40s, I was just like, you know,
Yeah.
but I do think about those young women when it does happen, if
Hmm.
if and when it does happen, like what advice? I guess maybe this is how we can kind of
Wrap it up.
close this,
Yeah.
even though I know it's not going to be this neat takeaway and every situation is unique and where you are. And I totally get it. Like I didn't want to have that be on my personal brand too, of
Hmm.
like this guy was, you know, trying to grope me or whatever.
Yeah.
Because there's also
Because
embarrassment.
we also know how women are treated. It'll get turned back on us. Why were you in the taxi with the person? If you knew
Yeah.
he was drunk, why did you get in? Why were you in the
Right.
person's office? Why did you allow it to happen for 10 months? Like
Mm-hmm.
why did you do whatever?
Yeah.
What were you wearing? You know, like
Yeah.
it always gets turned and we see this play out all the time. There's a continuous questioning of the woman's responsibility in it.
Mm-hmm.
And don't get me wrong, you know, sometimes I'm all for this notion of personal responsibility. I get
Yeah.
that. And I think it's really powerful when you take personal responsibility for everything that happens to you. And it's not that simple. You know, like if Danielle, you go back to that taxi incident. If you were 25 and that guy was the same age that he was at the time, so
Mm-hmm.
many, many years older than you, many, many pounds heavier than you, many, many years of experience more than you can imagine how that could have played out differently too.
Oh yeah.
25-year-old Danielle may not have been able to say, get your shit together and stay on your side,
Yeah.
you know? So I think that it's not that simple.
Right.
So I think if I were to think about advice for women and for men, I'm going to give advice for men in this too, but
Mm-hmm.
women, let's center women because inherently, women can be at a disadvantage based on size alone and also just like physicality and energy. You know, men can have a very strong energy and forbearing energy that is intimidating. And depending on how you react to that, like I said, my response is a freeze response. I have many instances throughout my life where I get fearful of a situation or someone and I freeze. I can't physically move and I can't say anything. But what I would say is, if for a woman that's in a position where something has happened, I think I'm not going to say go to HR because I work in HR and I know enough also from my own experience, like that sounds daunting and intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a variety of reasons why you might not want to tell someone what happened, the shame around it, the unknown of what the process is, like this
Yeah.
mysterious like investigation process that can happen in work settings, like just not knowing what would happen and what you have to keep, who do you have to talk to and who do you have to keep replaying this incident with is enough to make someone not want to do it. And varying HR departments and varying HR leaders with different experience will respond differently to these situations as well. So I'm not going to say advice is go to HR. If you're comfortable going to HR, great, go to HR. I think the best thing that a woman can do for herself is figure out a way to find your voice to be able to say something to the person directly. So, Danielle, your example in that vehicle, get your shit together, stay on your side of the car, push him away physically. My example, if, I know I didn't have the wherewithal to do it in my 20s, but I probably could have, ideally, maybe someone would have mentored me or helped coach me so that maybe by the second or third time it happened, I could just look him square in the eyes and say, this is not okay. You will not talk to me like this anymore. I don't want to hear anything other than work. And so that, like, just even saying that directly one to one, which I know is scary, but saying it one to one exerts a position of power. It gives you the power back. And I do think those 10 months would have gone differently if I had said something like that earlier on.
Mhm.
I honestly do. I think it would have stopped. But
Yeah.
because I didn't say anything, because I kept just simply changing the subject or avoiding,
Hmm.
it kept going until I removed myself from roles that interacted with him.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that I do. There is something really empowering to be able to say to somebody, stop that. Right. I mean, because
Yes.
I think about, there's actually something that I've been holding on to. This was earlier in my career where I was in a team meeting, and this is like in my early 30s. And the leader of this whole team was a man. And he was sharing some kind of marketing plan. And I had asked a question. I was new to the
Mm.
organization too. And I asked a question like, well, how are we going to do that? And he said, you don't have to worry your pretty little face, Danielle. And so
Mm.
that comment,
That was in
and
a team meeting
in
in a setting
yeah,
where other people heard?
and everybody else was
Oh
female.
gosh.
Everybody else was a
Oh.
woman there. And so part of me
Oh.
also was like, hey, like, are you guys not gonna, like, you guys have been working with this guy for a while now. I'm the new one.
Hmm.
And so I wish in that moment I would have pushed back, but I was so startled. And that moment has impacted me more than, but much more than the
Oh
drunk
my
taxi guy,
gosh.
you know?
I believe it. And there's also something around other people being there and observing it and being a bystander and not doing anything.
Yeah.
But now, Danielle, you would be like, well, you should worry your small little dick, mister.
That's right.
You'd have something.
No.
You want to talk
Whoa,
about
whoa.
physical
What?
aspects, physical
Actually,
traits?
and I was like the same size as him. So there was no, like, I would have taken him down.
You would have. Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
well, thank
Oh,
you,
see,
Janelle.
yeah, those little comments though, they stick
Oh,
with us. Like you
yeah,
said,
they totally
that
do.
has affected you far more. That's
Yeah.
so interesting. Well, last but not least, advice to men. First of all, we need more allies in the workplace. So, men, if you see other men behaving badly, particularly behind closed doors, when they think it's really safe to talk about women and their bodies and, inappropriate things, we need you to be the ones, or not be the ones, but we need you to say, this is not okay. We need you to
Mhm.
say, stop it. And hopefully it doesn't get to a place where we have to, and we will if we need to, we'll say stop it. But a lot of things happen behind closed doors in those good old boy settings, and we need men to be allies for us and create safe and inclusive workplaces where we don't have to worry about being harassed or touched or made felt small because of comments that are made. And I know if it hasn't happened to you, or if you're a guy and you don't understand why this would affect someone so much, I get that you don't understand because you're not in our shoes, but trust us, it does. Like we're telling you that it sticks with us and it affects us. It affects how we move forward. It affects how we work with other leaders. It affects, how we think of ourselves and our value. So just because you haven't experienced it or you don't understand why that would bother someone doesn't mean that it doesn't bother others. And there's plenty of us that will tell you it's very harmful. And a workplace should be a safe place to be able to just get your work done and not have to worry about those things.
It's so true. Thank you, Janelle. Oh, what a conversation. We actually went there. Our first episode of Leaders Behaving Badly. Gosh, I don't know where we're going to go from this. I mean,
I
this
know.
maybe we'll go a little lighter again.
Yeah.
I need the contrast. I
Yeah.
need the duality because this one was heavy, but I so
Yes.
appreciate the vulnerability with you, Janelle, sharing that. And it inspired me to share my story too, and the advice to give to women and for men listening as well.
Thanks, Danielle.
Well, if you enjoyed this episode, like and subscribe. I know that seems like a weird thing.
I know.
If you've enjoyed this on harassment. But anyway, we drop episodes every Wednesday, and we'd love to hear more from our listeners on what topics you want to hear us talk about. All right, till next time.